Marlene Rosselli is a vibrant, vivacious 69-year-old woman who he had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know. She lives in Thousand Oaks and loves to sew, cook, bake, travel, and read. We also had the pleasure of some of her cooking during one of our visits. With an outgoing and open personality, she is beloved by her friends and family and participates in many organizations in town. Marlene Rosselli was born in Washington on May 27, 1947, to parents John and Rita Miller. John and Rita married when they were 18 and 17. Her father worked in the Navy as a secretary, but he later went on to be a liaison between the draftmen and engineers. The family moved to Illinois after Marlene's birth. They lived there for 14 years. Marlene has a younger brother, Larry Miller, born 15 months after her. They were quite close growing up and didn't fight very much.
Buddies, yeah, we were good buddies. We didn't fight like a lot of other kids
Mhm.
did. I mean, he got on my nerves.
Yeah.
No one could flick a towel at your tush better than he could.
In 5th grade, Marlene's mother began to work in retail and factory work. She continued to work to support Marlene as she went to college. The family moved to California between Marlene's 7th and 8th grade. She said she felt more at home in California than she did in Illinois. In both 7th and 8th grade, Marlene took a mandatory sewing class. However, when she went to high school in La Puente, she took a semester of sewing and cooking in 9th and 10th grade for fun. Marlene sewed most of her own clothes. Marlene was a sophomore in high school for the John F. Kennedy assassination on November 22, 1963. Marlene said that she is not very close with her high school friends now, but she still knows her college friends quite well. Marlene's childhood differed from children today because when Marlene was a child, her parents were around a lot. She also had the freedom to play outside without really being concerned about safety. They were more inventive with the games they played because they didn't have electronics. Also, families weren't as spread out as they are now. Her grandparents were around a lot. She would see them at least once a week. She does think that parents now are more positive with their kids.
Marlene applied to both Pacific Lutheran and Cal Lu and ended up choosing Cal Lu. At the time, Cal Lutheran cost $2,000 for both tuition, room, and board, compared to the rough average of $54,682 that it costs today. 80% of the school's student body was Lutheran. She lived in Thompson her freshman year of school, and the dorms were locked at 10 o'clock p.m., and if someone came in after that time, they would have to be let in by the dorm mother. The dorm mother was in the habit of shaming those who came in late. Marlene was a French major and worked as the department assistant for the French department to help pay her way through college. This is an example of Santroc's socioeconomic differences that Marlene had in comparison with other Cal students. During Marlene's time in college, she viewed the low percentage of African American students being stopped and questioned about what they were doing while driving around in Thousand Oaks. Marlene was a junior in college during the Martin Luther King assassination. After the assassination in 1968, she and other Cal Lutheran students participated in a march that went from Moorpark Road to the Oaks Mall. The assassinations that Marlene experienced in her childhood and early adulthood can be compared to the effects that school shootings have today on millennials and Generation X. This is an example of Santroc's historical and ethnic context. Marlene had shared a lot of great traditions with her friends and roommates while she was in college. When a girl got engaged in the dorm, the group of roommates would pass around a candle, and whoever blew it out was the newly engaged woman. At the time, Kowloon also had mother-daughter weekends where the mothers would come and spend a weekend with their daughters. She encourages students to find that time in college to be silly with friends and have fun. She and friends also participated in picnics for birthdays. They had a signature pose, the caterpillar pose. She is still very close with college friends. After Marlene graduated from Cal Lutheran, she moved in with a friend and began to teach kindergarten. She and a college friend bought a house together and began to live together, which is another example of Santroc's socioeconomic context. She enjoyed working with children and continued to do so until she made the switch from elementary school to high school.
After teaching grade school, Marlene became a Westlake High School French teacher. She loved teaching this age group because of the in-depth conversations they could have. Not only did Marlene teach at Westlake High, she was also the cheerleading coach. While she was at an away game with her cheerleaders, she went to the snack bar to buy some nachos at halftime. To her surprise, she crossed paths with an old friend from high school, who she hadn't seen since her senior year when he left for UC Berkeley. They immediately reconnected, and at age 43 in 1990, Marlene and Jacob were married. She sewed her own bridesmaids' dresses and had a happy life with him.
So, yeah. Were you happy together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we got along amazingly well, and he was funny. He always had me laughing. And he was a good guy, really good guy.
Did you guys travel?
Because she loved to travel, she spent her breaks traveling to places such as Europe, Africa, Sweden, China, Thailand, Vietnam, New Zealand, and Switzerland. She said she loves France because French is her area of expertise, but the trip that stands out to her the most is her trip to Africa. She didn't think she would like the desert, but once she was there, she had an overwhelming realization.
Time and money to do that. But when I went to Africa, I really felt like I'd gone home. It was I felt so at peace there.
After teaching and traveling for 38 years, Marlene retired at age 62. She has experienced some occurrences of Sandrock's term ageism.
But that whole feeling of competence and like I'm somebody that knows what I'm doing, you know, starts to dwindle after a while when you don't have a context to have that in. And I've had little periods of time since I've been retired, you know, I'm off traveling and doing all sorts of things, but sometimes I get in a situation and I don't feel like anybody's listening to me, or they don't think that I know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm saying? And I just, at first it bothered me, but now I just go, well, they don't know me. They don't know what I've done, you know, because people I meet, and I say something about teaching. Oh, you were a teacher? You know, like newer people at church, you know, oh, you were a teacher? Yeah. Oh, what did you teach? No, really? You know, I'm like,
you're like,
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So
Marlene also depicts Sandrock's socio-emotional selectivity theory as she prioritizes those closest to her. She eats lunch with her friends from college at least once a month, and her plans for the future include moving into a new house closer to her family and traveling to visit her out-of-state friends.
A typical day in Marlene's life would be waking up naturally at 4:50 a.m. and either going back to sleep or reading on her Nook. Most days she takes Gil, one of her housemates, to school at 6:40 a.m. Afterwards, she comes back for a 40 to 45-minute walk. It is very important for people to continue exercising as they age because exercise reduces health risks and increases lifespan. Marlene has formed a habit of doing crossword puzzles while she eats breakfast. She makes doing the crossword puzzles an educational experience by looking up words that she doesn't already know. According to Sandrock, use it or lose it is a concept stating that continuing to perform skills that require active cognitive functioning can help prevent brain atrophy and reduce age-related cognitive declines. The rest of her day is usually taken up by one of the various organizations or church groups that she is a part of. Most nights, Marlene cooks dinner and saves the leftovers. She usually has lunch 2 to 3 times a month with her friends. We asked Marlene if she preferred early or middle adulthood, and she said that she was happy and miserable through all of it. Marlene thinks that many people experience a midlife crisis. She said that the first part of your life is looking forward, but then you get to a certain age and you start comparing what you've accomplished and what you thought you were going to get done, and that can be a rude awakening for some people. Not having children was the biggest disappointment of Marlene's life. When she was 40, she had to have a hysterectomy so she could no longer have children. Shortly after, she met her husband. Marlene said the secret to having a successful marriage is learning your partner's love language so you know how to show them that they are appreciated. Her parents were married for 60 years, and certain aspects of their relationship were really positive.
but I also saw them kiss and make up.
Yeah.
My father never left the house. My mother never left the house without kissing the other goodbye.
That's
You know.
sweet.
And if they didn't, you're forgetting something. You know? And then
That's cute.
yeah. And then sometimes just the way they would look at each other, you know, with this little smile.
Yeah.
You know, this smile of love in there.
In the past 3 years, Marlene has lost her father and then her brother. She was very close with her brother, and losing him was very hard.
Cherish your friendships and your family as much as you can and are able to. And because you know, all these people that that I taught with, that I went to school with. Not so much in high school, other than the kids that I went to church, you know, with. I was in youth group with. I stayed really close to them. But the ones that I knew from college were the ones that I stayed really close to, because mine's a different circumstance. Everybody says, you know, oh, I have this, my friend and I, we've known each other since second grade. Well, I left Illinois. And as much as I kept in contact with the people there, it just eventually just kind of dwindled away, you know, because I didn't see them again after I came back, you know, because I couldn't drive and I was at my parents' mercy, you know. And then by the time I lived there, I had no addresses to contact them for some reason. So I think it's easier with all your technical media stuff sometimes. I really do. But take time with your friends and do goofy, silly things together. It makes a lot of good memories. And don't be afraid to share who you are. You know, some people share too much, some people don't share enough, but, you know, and be true to who you are. You know, don't feel like you have to, you know, please everybody else or be what they want you to be. You need to find where you fit, and you need to find your own. I read this very shortly ago. You know, everybody said, you know, you have to find your niche, you know, your calling, you know, I like this phrase I heard a few years ago that says, find your place of belonging. You know, and that's what happened when I switched from elementary school to high school. I found my place of belonging in teaching. You know, I loved the stuff we did with the little kids, but they wore me out. You know, after 8 years, I took a year off because I was just like, and when I switched to high school, it just opened a whole new experience for me. And I just really, you know, and I still enjoy, you know, younger kids and like to do things with them and everything. And look for the good in people. So many people look for the bad in people. You know, look for the good in people. Because there's a lot of good in there. And sometimes you may be just the friend or person that will bring that out in them. So, and don't wait for someday to do things. You know, doesn't mean you should be irresponsible. You should be responsible. You should be caring. My mother-in-law was the one that taught me how to do positive statements to people and to my students and stuff like that. So that was really good. That was a good learning thing for me. And never stop learning. You know, keep learning, keep growing, trying to, you know, do what's, I don't know. Because you never stop kind of evolving. It's like, and they say, well, you know, you start going downhill from 25 on, you know, physically. I don't feel that way, but because mentally you certainly don't. You know, I still feel like I did when I was 25 or 30 inside, you know. And that's something I could recommend to your generation is get to know older people and find those stories inside. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of like what you're doing here. You did it because you had to. But find somebody, in, you know, somebody in your family or a family friend or, you know, your friend's grandmother or something like that. And just sit and listen to some of the things that they went through in their lives, you know, and don't just look at what your generation